And everyone is in from the waiting room, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Selectmen meeting on March 7th to order at 6:01, and we'll open it right up with public comment. CZ.
Yes, Z Sepulveda, 92 Granite Street. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you. Last week during the Government and Bylaws Committee's discussion of the citizen petition articles, wherein they decided what to recommend favorably and unfavorably. One of the arguments made for the unfavorable recommendation of one article was the fact that a member thought that it was very, very unlikely that the Board of Selectmen would pass the article on to the legislature, the state legislature, for an approval, which is required in that case. And because of that, he said that he wouldn't support the article because it had like a snowball's chance of being passed by you folks. I would like to know, in response to that, somebody that was a former selectman and also a former state representative stated that she believed that any article that passed town meeting had to be approved and by selectmen and passed on to the state legislature. I would like to know if the town has an attorney's opinion or actually not an opinion, a reference to that law that allows selectmen to withhold something that's been approved at town meeting. And if there is, has there ever been a case in the history of the town of Rockport where it happened?
All right. I can't answer it off the top of my head. I'll definitely get back to you on that though, and I'll find out what the ruling is from council.
Thank you very much.
All right. Toby.
Thank you. Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I got in two citizen petition articles on zoning topics. And looking at the planning board's agenda for their hearing at 6 o'clock for a miracle in person in the town hall, I don't see either of those proposed articles on the agenda. It was my understanding, I can't cite you chapter and verse, that the planning board was obliged to hold public hearings on zoning articles, whether they were their production or anyone else's wouldn't be to the point. Do you know one way or another about that? And have you communicated, since you're reviewing articles this evening, have you got communications with the planning board? And can you tell me whether they will indeed be holding a public hearing on the two articles, petition articles that I submitted?
I haven't. Go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm not aware that there's any obligation for a board to hold a public hearing on any petition article, whether it's zoning or otherwise. If they choose to, they could, but there's not an obligation to do that for a petition article.
Well, if that's the case, I would take your word for it. I had the opposite impression, but if you know, I don't. I'll take your word. But certainly it would be in the public interest, whether or not one had any sympathy for what the articles attempt to do, to hold a public hearing. That being, as members of your board have repeatedly said, the chance that you get beforehand to get your questions answered and iron things out. As opposed to slogging it out on the town meeting floor. So if it's not going to be done, I guess I find fault with the process and feel that also, since you are concerned about people being informed beforehand, that you ought to weigh in with the planning board.
Thank you, Toby. All right, next up is Carol.
I unmuted? Yes, I
Yep.
am. I understand that the selectmen need to have executive sessions, meetings sometimes to discuss issues. In fact, under tonight's section H, there is a description of specific issues to be discussed in executive session. I would like to know why the selectmen's executive session meeting scheduled for tomorrow at 2:30 in Town Hall describes no specific issue to be discussed, but instead it states to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, Long Beach. I would like to know, is the issue being discussed in executive session about selling our endangered Long Beach land and having taxpayers forever pay for seawall repairs? I think the Rockport public has a right to know that while facing global warming issues in our small island town, we still have selectmen and select women, some who would consider selling our Long Beach land. Thank you.
Can I get your name and address for the record, Carol?
171B Thatcher Road. Sorry
you.
about that.
And just to answer that, the motion is written that way just because it allows us to talk about every aspect of the lease, you know, or whatever we want to talk about in Long Beach. Despite executive session, we still have to have, there's still open meeting laws in executive session. We can't talk about any topic. So that's just how the motion's written. So, I mean, I don't know what's going to be discussed. I can't discuss what's going to be discussed, but as it said, it is going to be Long Beach for executive session in person. Next up is Bill.
Bill, you've been
Yes, hi,
unmuted.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bill Tobin, 24 Beach Street. I'm going to refer you to the situation with my petition to have 150, a numerical number for the for the quorum in both spring and fall town meetings, which would match our special town meeting 150. And the reason I want this is, I will not go into that, but when you consider this, the Government and Bylaw Committee said they just don't want any kind of number, as far as I can tell from their document here, that they're going to be putting in the warrant book that we give out to everybody for the town meeting on April 1st. And it says that the annual town meeting is an essential meeting that must proceed if the town's to have a budget, which is required by law. I don't see how that has anything to do with having a quorum. I don't see, I mean, that presumes that you won't have 150 people voting for, that's kind of ridiculous for an idea or any kind of thing. So I urge the select board not to listen to that very poor, reason to vote unfavorable for my petition of a quorum for 150 for all meetings in Rockport, in a sense. All right, and they also talk about we couldn't get our budget, and yet our budget does not take effect till July 1st. Am I correct about that, Mitch? I'd like to ask Ms. Chu as well. Right, July 1st, we're talking about this budget for the town meeting in April. Is that correct, Mitch?
The budget that would be approved at annual town meeting takes effect July 1st.
Thank you so much. All right. So, I don't know why they said that. And that would impede operations in the town. Well, naturally, if you didn't have a budget, but you have till July 1st. I mean, if someone decides at the last minute they want to call a quorum, when it's late, we want to avoid having 52 people decide what's going on in this town. We want a bunch of people deciding. And that 150 is an extremely low number. When you look at all, even at the height of COVID, we did have more than 150. That's for sure. I was there. Okay, so I just want you to just consider that, please, as you approve or disapprove, or you vote favorable or unfavorable, because they have voted unfavorable on 10 articles that are before you out of 11. Something tells me this is bending towards a prejudicial viewpoint, but
All right.
I don't know. It's
All right.
bending in that way. Thank you so much.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Chairman.
Bill. Just so you know, I will be, there is a lot more information in the document, and the board will be receiving that when we do our favorable and unfavorable decision making at the time. So thank you for that. Selectman Wilkinson, you want to say something?
Yeah, just, I don't want to get in a debate right now because I don't think the time is appropriate, but I think that there's some confusion over why there isn't a quorum at the annual town meeting, but I'd rather discuss that with the board when we get to because it's a petition article, so I'd rather discuss it with the board when we get to that.
Alrighty, thank you. Next up is Barbara.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Kaplan. I'm at 4 Ocean Avenue in Rockport. I'm part of ROC, the Rockport Affordable Housing Coalition. And we're started by ECHO, Essex County Community Organization, and have joined together with Rockport community members. And we held a wonderful information session on affordable housing on February 25th at the library. We had 45 people in person, 25 on Zoom. And we have, I'd like to invite all of you or who are able to come this Saturday on March 11th at noon in the Brenner Library. We have a follow-up information and discussion with a panel on affordable housing. Our goal is to inform. We feel that the people of Rockport, the more information they have, the more intelligent they will be able to be when they have to vote. So if you're able to, please come. You can also come on Zoom. The library has the website up. We have a brand new website. You can get there by rahc.us or Rockport Affordable Housing Coalition.org. So please check it out. It has all kinds of handouts from our first session and what's going on. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Then we have Laura.
Laura,
Laura
you
Evans,
there?
77 High Street. I have two timeline questions. One, I wondered about the timeline for interviewing folks for the Affordable Housing Trust that was enacted 2 meetings ago. That was my first timeline question. And second is a timeline and a plan for staffing the library with an assistant librarian and an on-site librarian, because I understand as of tomorrow, we're acephalous at the library, which is a dangerous position to be in. So I wonder what the plan is and when those two things are going to happen. Thank you very much.
Mitch just confirmed that there is already something lined up to come in place of the library assistant director.
We expect it'll be imminent with a temporary agency providing the on-site support in that role. It is important. Agreed.
And before I answer the next one, I just want to let Bill know I don't do second round comments in my public comments. There is a second section down at the end of the meeting that you're more than welcome to speak at. So for the timeline for the housing, we just confirmed all the applicants. They're in. Well, we're waiting. More can apply, obviously, but they'll be interviewed through the town administrator at our office, and then they'll be brought in front of us. So the timeline is, I'm hoping next meeting, but we're going to see where it goes. One of the people that applied, if appointed, unfortunately isn't in state right now. So in order for the meeting, for him to even be appointed, he'd have to get sworn in, and being sworn in needs to be in person. So that wouldn't even be able to happen now. So it's still up in the air unless we get another applicant that is ready to go and can apply.
I think I've
Alright.
heard of at least one other person interested. So
Okay.
I can work to reach out to that person because I know everyone's anxious to get it started. So
Alrighty. Thank you. And again, Bill, I'm not doing second round comments. I have another section at the end of the meeting. You're more than welcome to speak up at. So seeing no more, I'll move on to the consent agenda if I have a motion.
You do, Mr. Chairman. Let me just pull this up. I'm sorry. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve all non-held items on the consent agenda.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia is muted, if we can get him unmuted. Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye, motion carries. And next up, we'll be discussing the consideration of outdoor entertainment license for Windover. She's submitted her application. And Lisa, I believe, is here tonight. And I'm gonna have Lisa speak a little bit. I saw her a minute ago. I don't see her right now. Oh, there she is. Yep.
She's here.
I'm in green.
How are we doing, Lisa?
Great.
So
Thank
if you just
so
want
much for this
touch on
time.
a little bit of your plans for this year.
Yes, I'm trying to keep the website up to date with the performances that we have scheduled. As always, I work hard to bring excellent dance, theater, music, and poetry events to the community of Cape Ann at Windhover. It's a labor of love. My parents started this place in 1967, and I'm designated to continue that tradition. So I'm reaching out to companies, both local companies and New York-based companies, to come and perform. I'm working hard to try to get performances of varied kinds, all different kinds of dance, different kinds of theater, including Shakespeare, and some contemporary plays as well. Scheduled music of all kinds, some classical music, a quartet is coming, and a jazz cabaret. So as I confirm these performances, they will be on the windhover.org website. All performances will end by 10 p.m. I ensure that and I oversee that. And it's very important to me that the noise level be kept, quiet starting at 10 p.m. Most of the performances will end at 9:30 at the latest. Sometimes we've started late because of weather, but we have a tent now, so we can do the performances rain or shine, and that should ensure prompt timing. But I'm here to answer any questions and concerns that people have.
Alrighty, so I'll open up to the board first, and then I'll go to the public. So anyone from the board have any questions? Selectman Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Lisa. I didn't realize it went all the way back to 1967. Has it been with the exception of COVID, has it been consecutive since 1967?
Even with COVID, I continued it, believe it or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Because it's outdoors, I felt that we could have a very, very limited amount of people during that first year of COVID. But I had companies coming and rehearsing and staying as one person per cabin and performing outdoors. So I kept it going.
Right. And some people might know, I worked at Manchester and long before, after your father had passed away, but your father was a legend in the Manchester Public Schools. As a wonderful English teacher that because people knew that I was from Rockport, and your dad was mentioned many times. So anyway,
Yeah.
So the program will begin in the late spring and run until the end of the summer, correct? At the same
Yes.
type of program?
May through middle of October.
Okay, wonderful. And anything different that will be happening from previous years that the board should know about? Anything? So it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
The same mix of dance, theater, and music.
Wonderful. And the capacity at what's the capacity at the greatest number that you would have?
We've had up to 125, maybe 150 people in the audience. Because it's outdoors, it's spread out. And I've been really bad about counting bodies. But it's about 125 to 150.
Great. That's all my questions. Thank you, Lisa, and thank you
Sure.
for the community service and things that Windover has provided since 1967. So appreciate
Yes, please all come to something.
it. Oh, Ben, it's wonderful.
Any other questions from the board? All right, I'll ask, over the past 2 years or so, have you gotten any complaints from abutters or anything like that? That
Some
should be-
noise complaints, so I've changed the direction of the outdoor speakers so that they point to the back garden where our rhododendrons are. And to my knowledge, there's no houses back there. It's just basically woods and ocean. So I'm hoping by changing the direction of the speakers, I've solved the problem, but I will be on site every performance. I'm here on Cape Ann full time, so I will make sure that I'm attentive to any complaints.
And Mitch, we haven't received any, right? Via police department.
Not that I'm aware of from this last season.
Alrighty.
Great.
If there's no more from the board, I'll open it to the public. And I think Anastasia, I want to say.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Good
Please have
evening.
the name and address for the record.
111 Phillips Avenue, Rockport. I've written something down because I'm not a good public speaker. Good evening, everyone. My name is Anastasia Brown. I currently own and reside at 111 Phillips Avenue in Rockport. Thank you to the board for taking the time to conduct this meeting. As a direct abutter to Windover, I would like to take a few minutes to discuss my concerns about Windover's current license application for outdoor entertainment. The first concern is the outdoor entertainment noise level, duration, and late evening times of the performances. Last spring and summer during the Windover performances, we found that the noise level was disconcerting and disruptive. Events often ran from 3 to 10 p.m., including weeknights. We were often unable to sleep during normal bedtime hours. On October 1st, 2022, there was a private event that was so loud I called the Rockport police. The thumping bass from the speakers was like being at the party. My second concern is the outdoor lighting. The current lighting is emitting excessive glare and light trespass onto my property year-round. The lighting has been shining directly into my home, including my living room and bedroom, during all hours of the night. I want to summarize by saying that I have been supportive of Windover and its contributions to the community over the years. But as I stated, the current outdoor noise and lighting issues are of great concern. My thanks again to the board for listening, and please take into consideration the impact these matters are having.
Thank you. And then next up is Carol.
Unmuted, or I have to unmute myself. First of all, I want to thank Lisa for Windover and keeping it going, because I think it is wonderful. And I just wanted to say, I saw during COVID, you had a play, and I think it was a Shakespeare play. I can't remember the name of it, but it was wonderful. And it was all outdoors, and a friend of mine came and we had a great time. I'm sorry that neighbor of yours has noise troubles, but you do end early. I remember the play got over early, and as long as you finish by 10 o'clock, God, who goes to bed at 9 o'clock? But anyway, I wanted to ask you if you please will have more plays. I really enjoyed seeing a play outside. It was just wonderful. But thank you for your work, and I did want to say that I really appreciate Windover.
Thank you.
Carol, can you state your name and address of the
Oh,
record?
I'm sorry. I always do that. Carol Cook, 171B Thatcher Road. They all know me. Rockport, thank you.
Right. Next up is Laura.
Laura Evans, thank you for giving me a chance to say to Lisa Hahn, what a fabulous job you guys have done, and especially the quarry dance, I think is a really rich contribution to Rockport. If you guys haven't seen that, it's just wonderful. She brings in dance troupes who dance at the quarries. And I think it's such a magical spot. I hope you address Miss Brown's concerns, because, you know, as I'm sure you will, you said you would. And I wanted to thank you for bringing the arts to Rockport. It makes our town a much richer place. Thank you.
All right. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Yeah, I just want to make sure there aren't any other public comments first.
I don't see any hands up.
Okay. Are we good?
Yep.
Okay, just a couple of questions, and then, is it Anastasia Brown? Yeah. I'm wondering if you, I know that the selectmen, I just did a quick email search, but I couldn't get far. Was it you who sent us an email a few weeks ago asking when Windover was going to be on the agenda because you were in a butter and wanted to comment?
Yes, 'cause
Okay.
Yeah. I
Okay,
wanted to make sure that I didn't miss the meeting.
Perfect. Okay, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't you and another abutter that were here. So,
I
to-
actually addressed it to Mr. Vieira.
Perfect. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's the email that he passed along to
Mhm.
us. Great. So, if we were in person, now's one of those like awkward Zoom times, because if we were in person, I would say, okay, now's the time in the meeting where, we discuss outdoor licenses, and obviously Windover like does a huge service for the community and the public and the private events. And the fact that you kept it open during COVID, I was like thoroughly impressed. But obviously that doesn't discount that it is a business operating in a neighborhood. And frankly, like I say to everybody, we all are going to live here for a really long time, and we want neighbors to get along. So I'm wondering if the two of you have spoken and tried to work out any of the issues.
I called Lisa once about the lighting, and she responded by dismantling one light, but the lighting has increased. I've been at this property for 8 years. I've lived in Rockport for 20, but this property for 8 years. The lighting has grown tremendously.
Okay.
I don't know when it was last assessed, like by the electrical assessment people in town, but it actually comes right into my living room and bedroom, like so she did take, we were in contact with each other. She took one light down, but then it continued to be a problem.
Okay.
And sometimes the lights are on 24 hours a day.
Okay.
And it goes right into my bedroom like a laser beam, right onto
Okay.
the wall of my bedroom and in
Okay.
my living room. And I don't know what to do. And I think personally that 10 o'clock is too late for, I'm a nurse. I go to bed at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And, the level of the noise, when I first moved in, I remember being able to sit outside and maybe enjoy the light music. But the amplified music they have out there now is tremendous. It's so loud. I mean, it goes right in through my whole home.
Got it.
And,
Okay.
many of the butters aren't affected, like the Granite Street butters. I am really her biggest abutter. I am right there by the amphitheater. There's someone else to the right of me who is, and I'm not able, these events now go from the beginning of May. Now, May isn't that booked, through all of June on weeknights, every weekend in July through weeknights, and the events run sometimes 3 to 10 p.m. Lisa knows from the first day she walked into my house to get this signature, I've been supportive, but this has definitely changed. The noise level, the lighting, and it is disruptive to my life as a Rockport citizen.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
can't
no,
enjoy my home anymore.
Yeah, no, I understand. And I'm sure that Lisa wants to be a good neighbor as well. I don't want to put
Right.
words in her mouth, but
Oh, I know.
so I'm wondering, I mean, honestly, sometimes like, I know in the past, like one of us has paid a visit and met with, I think that I'm wondering if Lisa would be willing to look at the lighting, and maybe it's worth considering earlier end times during the week and maybe 10 on weekends. I'm just trying to figure out what would be a workable solution. Something tells me that if something tells me that the lights don't have to be on 24/7, that's probably
Yeah.
some kind of
There's-
accident or oversight.
Yeah, there's no lights that to my knowledge, there's no lights on 24/7, but the lights that you're talking about, I think, Anastasia, are the parking lot lights, not the performance lights.
Got it.
Those are lights that I added for safety. And I just want to make sure when people go back to their cars that they are able to see the ground, which is uneven, and don't trip and fall. So the only lights, so I've added lights in the parking lot. And I think when you and I did speak and I did dismantle, it was the parking lot light that was the one shining in your house, which I dismantled. If there's any others, certainly Windhover is completely closed up from October until May. So there is nothing there now. There shouldn't be, or certainly wouldn't be Windhover if it were. So I think that you and I should go through and look at the parking lot lights and identify which ones are the ones that are shining into your house. And I would be happy to look at adjusting the angle so that they shine in a different part of the field. But my main concern is safety.
Yeah, I understand. I was going to suggest, I mean, obviously we can, hash it all out here. I was also going to suggest if Chairman Brackett and myself could pay a visit and meet with the both of you. And we could kind of, we could honestly come in the evening, Ross, if you're open to that, and,
Yep.
just put our heads together and come up with something that would work, because I think everyone wants it to work out, but obviously, like other outdoor licenses, we obviously want people to be able to enjoy their homes and not feel like things are getting worse and worse. So if you'd be open to that, I'm not sure if there's a way. I know that getting permission because you're trying to book performances. So I'm not sure if there's a way to approve something tonight and then work. Mitch, maybe you can help with that. Approve something so that Lisa can start to book performances, but then we can meet and try to discuss the lighting.
I'm
And,
also wondering if Mr. Orlando, the electrical lighting people who do the inspections for lighting.
Building inspector.
The building inspector, yeah. If he could be part of this meeting. Because I did bring up chapter 14, section 6, the whole residential and dwelling lighting that Rockport has. And, there are definitely some, very specific stipulations,
If I may, that particular bylaw only applies to residential properties at the moment. It does not apply to commercial properties, just FYI.
Even if it's affecting a residential property?
Correct.
Okay.
But we can certainly check with Paul, or, we can certainly get guidance from the building inspector. I don't think that's a big deal.
I would very much like that.
Yeah. Ross, does this make sense to you? I'm just trying to figure out a way to move forward, but, obviously respect the issues that we're.
Yeah, definitely. I think the motion should definitely include, with a visit from the selectmen, or name us if it so be it. But just to, assure the motion is working well. Selectman Lawyer, you have a comment, question?
Yes, no, I wholeheartedly support what's going on Lisa's property, what is about on that property. But consideration of the dark sky lighting is something that has to be considered. So albeit maybe the bottom, but the dark sky lighting is the goal of Rockwood. So when you go there, and I think we all ought to go, quite frankly, see and hear as best we can, admittedly be able to hear the performances until they start. But we have an obligation to better understand what in fact are the complaints. But dark sky lighting is something that can be addressed right up front. And if the parking lot lights need to be of dark sky nature, i.e. directed downward, no scatter, then that's what needs to be. That's where I'm coming.
Well, I have more concern than the, just the parking lot lights. I mean, there are lights everywhere now. It's like looking at a Sears parking lot from my home. There's, they're stringed up everywhere. And you know, the noise issue is also of great concern for me, and you know, I can assure everyone who's on the board, if they were listening to the volume of the level of music, the amplified music that I've been putting up with, you would be in the same boat that I am and discussing it like I am right now.
So is the amplified music happening during the performances? This is a question for Lisa, or is it during
Yes.
private events?
It's during performances.
Okay.
And private events.
Well, it depends on, what
Okay.
what how you define the private events, right?
Right. Got it.
Well, what
But I'm happy to send out a schedule for that, to you in advance.
Yeah.
Because I will, and as I said, it's really important to me that all sound stop at 10. That's a hard and fast rule. If a play ends, say at 9:45 and the audience is leaving, then I can't turn the lights off until I promise by 10:30 they could be off in terms of the parking lot lights. But there should be no other outdoor lights on after that time. I'm part of the dark sky movement, actually, and I'm part of the astronomy club. I revere dark skies here. That's really important to me. And I encourage everyone who's a resident at Windhover for the dance residencies to actually look at the Milky Way, which you can see. I even host the astronomy club with Billy Waller in my field at Windhover. That's how important that is to me. So I really get that, and I really want to work hard to make sure that people enjoy the dark skies.
Now, my question is, you have from 7 to 9:30 for the both ends. Why this keep being mentioned from 3 to 10? What's are you having performances earlier sometimes?
I mean, if
or
we
are
have
those...
performances, matinees, we don't need lighting. So, the lighting comes into play when it's dark, and in the summer it gets dark pretty late. So we generally, in June, we don't usually have lights until intermission.
Yeah, but I'm
Because it
saying
gets-
this
I
state's
don't know what you-
performances.
Oh, you're talking
from
about the
7 to
noise?
9:30 in general, having a performance in general. This is for the entertainment license. So if you're not staying within the parameters of the submission that you submitted, if it's starting at if there's a performance starting at 3,
right?
Technically, you're not getting a license to start at 3. You're getting a license to start from 7 to 9:30.
Oh, well, no, we do have matinees that we want to schedule. So if I need to be specific about the exact timing of every performance, I can do that. But generally it would be matinees, and that would start at either 2:00 or 3:00 and end 2 hours later. And then the evening performances vary in starting time. Some start at 7, some start at 7:30.
Okay.
So I have to cope with in my home from 3 to 10 o'clock, loud music. And it's not just the music, the theater productions are also amplified. And it's of great concern.
Alrighty.
Yeah, I have a question.
And I think 10 o'clock is too late.
I was going to ask if it's possible during the week to end them at 9 or 9:30, and then weekends go till 10. I mean, I know it's a short season.
I can talk to, we have a Shakespeare play booked, Romeo and Juliet. I mean, it might mean they'd have to cut some of the scenes to put on the play during the weekdays. I don't know. 9:30 should be fine. I mean, I can't imagine it would go longer than that.
Okay.
So I could probably say off the top of my head, absolutely, weekdays at 9:30.
Okay.
9, I'd have to just make sure I actually think of the length of every show.
Okay.
And maybe start them a little bit earlier. It's just that we didn't want to cut into people's dinner time.
Right. Got it. Okay. So, I mean, honestly, it sounds like it would be a huge help to amend the license to, I think regardless, the license needs to be amended just so that it covers the accurate hours. So it sounds like it needs to be, I think, honestly, 3 to 9 during the week would be awesome if you could do it. I think if it would be really difficult, 3 to 9:30, and then on the weekends, 3 to 10, just so that it's, you know, it does need to cover what you're actually doing.
Right. I think safely 9:30 would be great weekdays, and then I would work hard to make sure I try to end everything at 9 on the weekdays.
Okay, so that way during the week, you know, ideally if a show ends, you know, hope like a little bit before by 9:30, that
Mhm.
parking lot is like the lights can be shut at 10,
Right,
which, you know, is better than 10:30, 11, I would think.
right.
And then maybe, you know, maybe we see how that works and then we move forward. You know, I'm trying to find some middle ground here to make it work out. Maybe that combined with changing the lighting. And then honestly, I feel like we're going to need to come and actually hear the sound. Anastasia, I'd be happy to come. We actually did this when we started the hump days. You know, we kind of drove to different spots of town and saw how for ourselves how loud it was. So I'd be happy if you'd have us in your yard to stop by and hear how it is. And then, you know, and it's a license. It's one of those things that, you know, if we get complaints, depending on how things go, you know, obviously we want people to stay good, to be good neighbors. So, you know, but if things have to be adjusted, they have to be adjusted. So maybe if we start with 9:30, changing it to doing 3 to 9:30 during the week with the goal of lights out being by 10, and then weekends going 3 to 10, and then us visiting and hopefully changing the lighting around. And then we all try to pay a visit this spring. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah,
Yep.
I've turned off the electricity for the season, so let me know so I can, you know, make sure I get that turned back
Okay.
on to
I think
test the lights.
Okay, I think Anastasia's trying to say something.
Personally, I think 9:30 is too late, especially on weekdays. You know,
How long have these hours been in effect?
Since the beginning of Wintover, it's been a tradition.
1967?
Well, I was so little then. Since my mom
too.
since my dad passed away and my mom took it over. And at that point, she turned it into a nonprofit. So actually, even though we've had events and plays and Shakespeare and all kinds of stuff since 67, when my mom took it over and turned it into a nonprofit, that was like 1980 or 81.
Right.
Since that time, we have had dance and theater and music performances outdoors. And as I recall, the selectmen said 11 p.m. is the latest, and my mom dictated that it should be 10. Because she goes to bed early and she didn't want any noise and sound and lights after 10. So she's the one who actually made 10 p.m. the stopping point. And it's been like that for decades. I mean, since I grew up there.
So if we were
since
to
I
move
took it
this-
over, I've kept it 10 and let all of the performers know that they have till 10.
So if we were to change, this would be the first change that you can remember.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And Anastasia, you knew, and I don't mean this in a negative way or anything, but you knew Windover was there when you moved, correct?
absolutely, and it was very pleasant. But the level of the music has changed since I've moved in, and as has the lighting.
So the
And
music change has been more of a problem than
it's
the hour.
loud and amplified. Yes,
Okay.
I
So
barely
maybe-
noticed it when I first moved in for a number of years.
So I concur with Selectman Wilkinson about, making a visit so that we can, make a better decision. But maybe is it possible, Lisa, to lower the music down a little bit?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's just I want the audience to be able to hear. That's all. And they're the same speakers that my mom had, so I haven't changed anything with the sound. It's a really, really old system.
I'd like to see it to go to 10 o'clock, but I also would like, for neighbors, especially Anastasia, who's coming in front of the board here,
Right.
to be able to deal with it. So if we lowered it a little bit, maybe
Yeah,
that would
lowered
be a
it and
compromise.
maybe adjust the direction. When I first spoke, I said we adjusted the direction of the speakers but maybe that wasn't sufficient. So I'd be interested in trying to play with that as well.
Well, it looks like both Lisa and Anastasia are willing to work together, and the town is certainly willing to work together. So that's a positive a sign. So let's hope that we can get this worked out. But I think we should take a visit and see what we can do.
That would be wonderful.
Selectman
And I can
Lilly,
assure
have
you,
comment?
the last thing I want to do is close,
Oh, no, I
do
understand.
anything to Lisa and her, wonderful window. I've been supportive of it, as she knows, from the minute she walked up to my door to get my signature. But I also, as a tax-paying citizen in Rockport, I deserve to be able to enjoy my home through the summer and be able to relax outside my home, be able to sleep, and not to have, have lighting coming through my windows at night. Anyways, I truly appreciate people listening to my concern.
I think for now, if we adjust it, Ross, to 3 to 9:30 during the week, 3 to 10 on weekends,
Yep.
that will at least get it quiet, totally, quiet by 9:30, quiet and dark by 10 during the week. And then we can all try to visit to hear the noise, and then we can make a visit. You and I can make a visit to look at the lighting. And I think, honestly, just talking it out, I agree with what Paul said. I think we can definitely work it out to make everyone happy.
All right, just real quick, any final questions?
Just when were you planning to come and do the lighting? Because I've dismantled all the lights for the winter, so I just wanted to.
Oh, I think as soon as
I get the season.
Yeah.
Okay.
So any other
Because I
questions from
think the way
board?
we understand is you need the license to book your performances, right?
I do, because I have a lot of groups on hold.
Yeah, so I think we can, I think the fact that you're, willing to work on it and find a solution, I would think we can vote tonight. I don't think that will hold it up.
Thank you.
I'm happy to make a motion if you like.
Yeah, I want to get the board, I want to get everyone else muted and have the board discuss it if there's no more questions. Selectman Murphy, any questions for the?
I just to Lisa, if we are you agreeable with the 9:30 during the week?
Yeah.
Is that going to cause a problem?
I would prefer to just say yes. Let me make sure I do whatever it takes to get the groups. So yes, let's just do that. And
thank you for being cooperative.
Yeah, no, it's important to me.
It has been there since 1967, and so I need to say that. But thank you, and thank you, Anastasia. You've been very cooperative too. This usually doesn't happen this way. Trust me.
All right, so for the board, the motion will have to include a amended application that would have to come in for the operations hours. So I'd ask that be included.
Right. So I move that pending receipt of an amended application, that the board approve an outdoor entertainment license for Windhover Performing Arts Center for the 2023 season as stipulated in the amended application.
I will second that.
All right, any more discussion? I'm gonna confirm, or at least ask that the amended application has 9:30 as the end date, if the board agrees. And if you want to specify weekdays and weekends, please do so on that for the hours of operation. If you want to go to 10 p.m. on the weekends, if that's what the board also agrees on.
Yeah,
that's fine.
All right. All right, if there's no further discussion, I'll
Thank you.
do a roll call vote. Seeing none, Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye, motion carries. So please, Lisa, just get the amended application in as soon as you can, and then you can get your license.
Okay, I'll be there tomorrow to do it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
both of you.
Thank you, both of you.
Yep.
All right. Next on the agenda is action items. For one earlier, I just want to stop real quick. The consent agenda for the public knows was approval of minutes, if any, and 2023 license and permit approvals. Those are what were approved earlier tonight. So for action items, I have considered acceptance of Comfort Dog and associated monetary donations.
Yes,
Um,
Mr. Chair, you've got, just to give a little background, this is the official acceptance of the actual dog.
Okay.
In addition to some monetary donations that have come in preparation for it. The motion indicates the value of the dog from Salty Dogs, Golden Retrievers, as well as some monetary donations. So the board will, hopefully there'll be many more donations. This program is based solely on donations. So you'll see this on a regular basis. The intention will be monthly that you'll have this brought before you based on any donations that are over $100 that come in.
all right.
Great. Mr. Chair, would you like a motion?
Yes, please.
I move that the board accept the donation of a comfort dog from Salty Dogs, $3,800 value, and cash donations from Daniel Mahoney / Breeze Fisheries, $200, John Horvath, $500, Ruth Kilduff, $100, and the Beleza family, $100, all to be deposited into the Comfort Dog gift account.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
The dog looks so cute. I can't even handle it.
They name him yet? I didn't see did they name it?
I think there's going to be a little bit of a competition at the school to select a name or to offer some
Okay.
suggestions for it.
All
The
right.
kids are so excited for the dog, like so excited. It's so cool.
No, this is great. I think it's wonderful. I remember when the chief came in front of us, or we got something from Mitch. I've got how it all transpired, but I've been a favorite from day one, and it's going to be wonderful.
Awesome. All right, we'll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is consider placing articles on the annual town meeting warrant and meeting logistics, but there's going to be a change to that tonight. Mitch, if you want to touch on that.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. So we're going to need to hold on the first portion, actually placing the articles tonight. The intent would be that we'd focus tonight on the meeting logistics. So the town clerk and I have been going back and forth a bit with, or needing to go back and forth a bit further with town council on making sure we're getting the logistics exactly right. It seems that every time we get a response to something that we think we've closed out a particular set of questions, a new set appears. So we want to be sure that we get this correct as far as how we're bringing in those additional articles from the previous meeting and some logistics surrounding that. So we will end up needing a brief special meeting sometime next week for placing the articles. But this evening, the planning board chair is here. The moderator is here. The town clerk is also here. Discussion particularly focused on logistics for the meeting. So the goal would hopefully be tonight that we could come to a decision on selecting a second day or night, and so we can start to plan for that. So I'll unmute, ask Monty to unmute in a moment, Jason and Bob and Melanie. The options in front of the board, I think right now are, in addition to the Saturday daytime meeting, the thoughts are we could do Monday evening, or we could do that Sunday, have it Saturday and then go right into Sunday, or do Monday evening. And I know that there's some different feedback again from the elected officials on the call here. Mr. Chair, so I would ask if the board and the planning chair and the clerk and the moderator have thoughts on what they'd like to see relating to the second day, so we could start some logistics planning for that.
Alrighty, we'll start with the board. Any Selectman Murphy?
I oppose Sunday for religious reasons, for all religious reasons. And my mother would be so happy with me right now. But I think it's realistic to have it on Monday.
All right. Anyone else from the board?
Agreed.
Selectman
Agreed.
Wilkinson?
I think I think Selectman Lilia was saying something first.
No, I agree with the comment that Monday is an acceptable alternative date.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have enough trouble getting people on Saturdays, but to ask people to give up their entire weekend just seems, I mean, I think Monday's the best alternative. Agreed.
All right, and then I'll turn it over to Jason and Bob and Melanie. What do you guys think?
Well, this is Bob Visnick, 40 Jordan's Lane, moderator. Of course, for 17 years, we've had it on the Jewish Sabbath. So I thought Sunday was an appropriate day, but Monday is fine as well.
Jason, Melanie?
Yeah, Monday's fine. Long as it's, as long as we give people, I'm sorry, as long as we give people time to get off from work and go.
What time are we looking at, like 6 o'clock?
It would probably be a 5:30 start if it's Monday evening.
Okay.
And I just think we may need a third day. This is a pretty heavy duty warrant, I believe.
If I may.
Yep, Melanie?
I happen to think, as a single parent, weekday evenings are a challenge. And I've reached out to the high school to see if we could have some volunteer community service hours from high school students to help with babysitting and running microphones. But I know it's giving up the whole weekend. My personal preference, or I see a higher volume of people coming on a Sunday.
I'm with Sarah. I don't think people will give up a whole weekend. I just don't see it happening.
So just a comment, Melanie, the last time we had, I think the babysitting had to be arranged through the Y because of the insurance. I'm not sure if anything has changed, but the last time that we had like arranged and paid for it, no one used it, which was like so frustrating because on Facebook, we see all these comments, right, that are like, if there was babysitting, I'd go, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm kind of like, I feel like if there were wine and pizza, that's really the only thing that would get people to come. Maybe that's what we need to look into.
I like that idea.
But I get it. I mean, and honestly, I've spent a lot of time like after the last 2 town meetings explaining to people how like weekends are challenging for people and weeknights. So that's why we try to do the annual on a weekend and then the fall on a week, that we try to alternate between them. And there's no perfect time. It's like, yeah, I just feel like a Sunday after what's definitely going to be like a, I don't want to say all nighter, but like an all day or on Saturday, I feel like to ask people to go home and come right back. I feel like people are going to be like, that's a hard no.
Or maybe they could just stay and then we could have a little dance at night or something.
Yeah. Do like a rockathon.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm fine with both days, but it looks like the consensus is Monday evening to be exact for the second day.
Well, and if Bob thinks we're going to have to do a third, I mean, then my guess is it would roll to Tuesday, right?
Yes.
Yes, I would not want to go the following weekend.
And we'll have to check availability of the audio vendors as well.
Yeah.
And obviously there's no conflict with the school on Sunday or Monday. Like there's not gonna have to be a breakdown of the gymnasium on Sunday and then.
No, based on basketball's over, spring sports are in, and if they're the only way they would use the gym if there was inclement weather, but they could make other arrangements.
All right, Selectman Leah.
If you foresee a need to have it on both Monday and Tuesday night, and that would be from 5:30 to 9
midnight
or whatever, why not think in terms of the next Saturday during which you could have all of it happening on one day?
Well, I'll be away.
And I would say just logistically going to the next Saturday, that's a pretty big lift for the setup, the breakdown, because we wouldn't be able to leave it up all week. That would pose a challenge. The Monday night is not, if that's the board's decision, that wouldn't pose a logistical issue. We'd work with the school for the Monday night. We'll have to check with them for Tuesday to see where that is. But if we were to go to the following weekend, I think that we can do it if that's what you choose, but it would pose a logistical challenge.
And we've really had good fortune in meetings that we think will take multiple nights, getting through them in one, long day. And I know some are opposed to a long day, but I think if we can do it in one day, that's what we should shoot for.
Okay, thank you.
What time will it start? What time will it start in the morning? Not,
So it'd be up to the board. You could do 8:30 or 9.
yeah, I mean, honestly, would it just to try to do more like, I mean, it's sprint, like would 8, I think the earlier the better, right? Is
Agreed.
Mel shaking your head? Yeah.
I would
Totally
say
agree.
8. Let's do 8.
Yes.
Jason, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say just, I know there are a couple of, several petitions, citizens petitions, that relate to zoning. And if it looks like that we're gonna be doing the zoning bylaws on Monday, that I would think that those petitions should be moved to Monday to be consistent with the zoning, because
I
they
don't
actually.
think we
they
can do
actually
that.
do
You
it.
wanna touch
Well,
on that,
we don't
Mitch?
know yet. That's
No,
part
not
of
yet.
why we
Okay,
aren't
still waiting.
launching tonight. We need to make sure we check every box on
Yeah.
exactly how it's going to roll out.
It makes sense, but
And certainly to the extent I have discretion to do that, if they're related, we'll hear them, all together.
Alrighty.
Article G and Q. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess my vote is to start, as early as possible. Just like, I think, best result is like as much as we can keep in one day, better, right? That's always been our luck.
Exactly.
So does anyone oppose an 8 o'clock start?
8 o'clock?
Yeah.
The only thing I think is that the more time you
early.
collect, the more time it's going to take. I'm not sure that starting at 8 as opposed to 9 is going to mean that there's less discussion or things are going to happen faster.
What about
Well,
8:30?
Okay.
I don't know.
Bob, Jason.
Well, when's the earliest you've ever started them before?
8:30.
And so that buys you what, an additional half hour on the back end? Is that really worth it?
I think it is, but I'll
I do
certainly,
too. Towards the end of the meeting, people begin to get a little punchy and tired and so forth. So if we start early, I know that, a lot of people go to bed early on Friday if they know town meeting is going to be the next day, especially if it's going to be a long meeting. So I think the earlier the better.
Mr. Chair, I think logistically, the clerk has the most staff on site that particular day. Perhaps we could ask her again, Madam
right.
Clerk.
No, we don't have any restrictions. I mean, I tend to think the earlier the better, but just again, because it gives us the most bandwidth, but we're flexible.
I'm okay if we want to do the earliest. I'm okay with 8 if that's okay, but 8:30 is fine too. It's up to the majority. So
Sure.
yeah, I'm obviously fine with either, but I just personally think if we can get started earlier, people are fresh and it's more effective, at least in my view, earlier in the day than later in the afternoon.
all right.
I feel like 8:30 might give, honestly, the thing people always say to me is I need to go to the dump before I come. So I think that gives people time to get coffee, go to the dump, and then come to town meeting. And it
used to be closed. The
It
transfer
used to be
station used to be
closed, yeah.
closed
I know,
on the
but
day to town meeting.
yeah, it was, yeah. That's a whole nother discussion. We could should probably not get into tonight.
So the consensus is 8:30.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Sure.
and Monday evening, 5:30?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll proceed with that for planning purposes. And like I said, we'll need to have an additional meeting next week to place the articles. Once the clerk and I are able to sort out the couple of legal items that are still pending, as far as making sure we're doing everything exactly as it needs to be going into this meeting and making sure we properly close out the special.
Alrighty.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Jason, Melanie, and Bob, thank you.
You.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night, everyone.
All right, next up, we have consider selection of project submissions for federal funding, considering through Congressman Moulton's office.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So
I'll
this
read
one,
that.
we talked about this at the last board meeting, and since then, as I forwarded to the board, we've gotten an updated set of guidelines from the Congressman's office, which I believe they've gotten from Washington. Projects submitted need to have a federal jurisdictional nexus. So based on the projects that were discussed by the board last time, I've offered suggestions to you as follows: submitting or working with the Congressman's office to submit any or all of funding associated with the regional wastewater treatment facility, funding associated with repair and replacement of water infrastructure, funding associated with wastewater infrastructure, funding associated with design and engineering of a protective barrier for flat ledge quarry drinking water supply, funding associated with the repair of Granite Pier breakwater.
All right, any discussion, or I can take a motion first if anyone would like to make one.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move that the board approve the submission of the following projects for federal funding consideration pursuant to guidelines provided by Congressman Moulton's office, funding associated with a regional wastewater treatment facility, funding associated with repair and replacement of water infrastructure, funding associated with wastewater infrastructure, funding associated with the design and engineering of a protective barrier for flat ledge quarry drinking water supply, funding associated with the repair of Granite Pier breakwater. All project submissions based on federal jurisdictional nexus.
All right, any questions for Mitch or any discussion?
Makes sense.
All right, roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye, motion carries. It's all taken care of. Next up, we have consider appointment of Thatcher Island keepers for 2023 season.
Mr. Chairman, Committee Chair Wedmore has submitted his list, which you have in front of you for consideration.
All
Would you
right,
like a motion?
yeah, I'll take a motion.
I move that the board appoint the following individuals as island keepers for the 2023 season, all at will. Jeanette and Larry Haynes, Sue Ellen and Sid Wedmore, Peg Brady and David Condino, Mary Ellen and Steve Kother, Pete Morgan and Steve Bennett, Sue and Fred McGrath, Donna Kuzic, Karen Wise and George Langer, Camille Dewey, Sarah and Dorothy Glick, Patty Wegman and Paul Senna, Michael Castricini, Joanne Sullivan, Patrick and Kate Riley, Nathan Ives and Randy Seville, John Dew and Jeff Corliss, Francesco Twombly. Was that Francesca?
Francesca, sorry about that. Francesca.
That's okay.
And then you got some more on the next page.
Oh, are there more? Sorry. Oops. Okay. Nathan and Sharon Cohen, Julie and Scott Bisgard, Vicky Vissering, Christy Millhouse, Darlene and John Fulton, Sandy, Richard, Charlie Lorigan, Leslie Milne, Heidi and Norman Delisle, Linda Byrne, Alice Twombly, Gail Zeman and Grace Taborick, Peggy Flanagan and Joseph Napolitano, Christine Lovegren and Meredith Glazer, Krista Clark and Harry Newell.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye, motion carries. And last on the action items is consider a change of date for Pigeon Cove Circle one-day alcohol license.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have a motion for that.
All righty,
I move that the board approve a change of date for the Pigeon Cove Circle one-day alcohol license to March 18th.
Second.
all right. You want to read the last part, just to confirm that's in there? Selectman Loya.
I don't have the last part written down.
All other approvals and stipulations remain in full force and effect.
Thank you.
All right. So roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Loya,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. And last on our, well, not last, but last of us doing most of the talking, board and town administrator updates. I'm gonna have Mitch go first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a few items under finance, particularly this evening. First one, operating capital budgets. CIPC had a meeting this afternoon for a few hours. They'll have a second meeting on Thursday. They're in the process of considering the departmental requests that have come forward. The intention is, based on the timeline that we're working off of, to finish review next this coming Thursday, and have recommendations that afternoon. Those recommendations will then be transmitted to this board and to the finance committee for your consideration and approval. At that point, they'll move forward to town meeting. The date that we have to really get things squared away for all of the budgets is the middle of next week, so that we can make sure we have proper posting and development of the warrant. So the intention is we'll have those over to you at the meeting that you consider adding the warrant articles to the warrant and issuing the warrant. We'll have the updated capital and operating budgets for your final consideration, in addition to finance committee. Free cash amounts. The free cash was certified last week. Free cash was certified. Excuse me, for the general fund in the amount of $2,973,482.
Wow.
Yes, water, $61,392. Sewer, $69,240. So the general fund one was more than we anticipated based on our projections. Typically, it comes out to be around $2 million. So we had our accounting and finance staff do a review of that. And as I shared with CIPC this afternoon, we had several revenue sources outperform our expectations, primarily around hotel and meals taxes. Both of those outperformed our expectations, in addition to several other smaller ones. So that led to that larger than anticipated number. Again, typically it's right around 2 million. So we have made, and they're in the process of making, for the FY24 budget, we're in the process of adjusting our revenue estimates to accommodate for that larger amount while still being appropriately conservative, knowing that it can fluctuate, but with an increase like that, it's important that we do go back and adjust that, which will again be in front of you for your consideration next week. But having said that, that is our number. Again, it's based on where we are at that moment. So what we have done the last several years is present to Selectmen and Finance Committee recommended uses to seek your discussion and approval so that we can proceed forward with those. I'm going to share the screen here. Okay. Can you see the document?
Yep.
Okay. So the recommendations from the finance director and myself are as follows. Again, same model we've used for the last 4 or 5 years. $40,000 to COVID expenses. I anticipate this will probably be the last time that we would do that, but we are still utilizing some of that for our Zoom process, Zoom meetings, and Zoom hosts and things of that nature. Once we get an idea whether the legislature is going to permanently keep Zoom and things of that nature, we'll work to move that into the operating budget. But for now, we feel likely a final deposit into the COVID account for that of 40,000.
I know that Ross is dying to meet at the selectman's office, even though he's been on the board for 3 years and he hasn't. So And
Master,
Herm, of course, Herm as well.
Yes,
yes. Master roadway improvements, typically that's a $200,000 deposit into that account. Again, based on this larger than expected number, I'm recommending to you $400,000 deposit. We could put $1 million into that account and it still wouldn't make a dent in the process. What typically this is used for is the design and engineering, and it ensures that there's seed money to continue to move forward with design and engineering so that we don't fall behind. Typically, the actual larger roadway projects are done through a borrowing, which is currently in front of CIPC. The charities article is our standard amount, $15,100. Assessor reval, also our standard amount, $75,000. General stabilization, $150,000. Capital stabilization, $150,000. Sped stabilization, $300,000. So that is slightly larger than normal. In consultation with the current superintendent and with the previous one, the intention of that account is to be helpful and to accrue a little bit of a balance. Unfortunately, the last few years, we basically take out what we put in. So we're in a position to put a little bit more than normal in, with the goal that we won't hopefully drain the account this time around. So the finance director and I are recommending $300,000 for that. Conservation Trust, the standard deposit of $450. OPEB trust fund, $100,000. In addition to that $100,000, we carry $125,000 in our operating budget every year for OPEB. So we put in $225,000 for our OPEB liabilities into the trust. Snow and ice, as of right now, I am anticipating $50,000 based on where we are at this point in the year. We're in deficit on snow and ice expenses, but we are not in deficit on snow and ice labor. I think, we're all probably hoping at this point that we're done with snow and ice. No one more than the highway foreman, Lenny, who's on the call right now. We're hoping that we're done with that, or at least it's as minimized as possible. So we're anticipating and recommending $50,000 for that. A new item that I'm recommending to you is $100,000 towards climate resiliency and mitigation. As you're aware, we're in the process of trying to move forward with the MVP grant, and we've had a small amount of money in the selectmen's budget, approximately $25,000 for this same purpose. We're in a position this year where we can make a larger deposit towards that, and this would allow us to, I think, contribute a bit more depending on what we get out of the MVP program, and to engage consultants when we get to that point. This is some seed money to be able to do that in a way that's a little more substantive than just $25,000. And that would leave $1.5 million for capital requests. So we had a healthy capital request list last year. We have another healthy request list this year. $1.5 million provides or will provide a substantive amount of projects to be able to move forward. As has been our stance for many years, we try to avoid or minimize to the extent possible borrowing. Borrowing is expensive in this point in time, very particularly. So the intention is to try to cover as much as possible of the projects that are vetted through CIPC with free cash. And we're again in a position this year to take a healthy chunk of those, depending on their final disposition by CIPC and this board and finance committee. So those are the recommended uses for free cash. Happy to take any questions on those.
Selectwoman Donnelly?
Yeah, Mitch, my question is, why wouldn't we use ARPA money for the COVID related expenses? And that would give us another $40,000 for climate resiliency, for example.
So we've been purposely trying not to draw out of the ARPA but we haven't drawn out of the ARPA with the exception of the COVID test kits. That money, I expect, especially when we get to that in the next item with the survey, I think that's going to have some very significant requests for drawdowns coming out of it.
Oh, I'm sure.
And so our thought process was we would likely just do a final free cash deposit and then seek to just transfer those costs into the operating budget, trying to hold ARPA as harmless as possible so that it can go for its highest and best use based on
Yeah.
where this board sees it. So that was our intention, certainly the board's prerogative.
Yep, yep. The only reason I bring it up is the whole reason ARPA came about was because of COVID.
Mhm.
So just a thought.
Any other questions from the board? All right, seeing none.
So, Mr. Chair, if there's a consensus from the board, we'll proceed forward. If there's any changes you'd like to make, it'd be helpful to know. Otherwise, we'll proceed with the general consensus to Thursday with the Finance Committee and share the same request for them, barring any requests for changes at this point, formal requests for changes or objections.
Does the board want to make any changes, or are they okay with moving forward with this?
No, I'm good with the recommendations from the town administrator.
All right.
I would agree.
Selectman
so-
Wilkinson?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, I'm glad Denise asked that question because I wondered the same thing, but
Yeah, it's a bit of, I get exactly where you're coming from. Our thought process has really been trying to hold that as harmless as possible.
yeah. Yeah, and I know we're gonna, get some public input on that money, and so, yeah. I mean, it's frankly, it's all the same pot of, you know what I mean? It's all the same pot of money, so.
Okay, so thank you. We'll proceed based on that to Finance Committee. The next item that I have for your consideration is relating to ARPA and the intention to issue a survey on the board's behalf. I think I've spoken with several board members about this over the past few weeks. I think it is helpful to issue a brief survey, and by brief, I mean 1 or 2 questions. Trying to gather some community input for all of you to consider as you contemplate your determination on the usage of those funds. So it would be helpful if there was a board member who would be willing to work with me next week to craft those 1 or 2 questions, and then we would issue it through our SurveyMonkey account and have it open for, probably 2 weeks and some paper copies out and get some feedback for your consideration.
All right. Anyone want to work with town administrator next week? If not, I'll do it. But don't know
I
if this-
can do it.
All right.
Okay, thank you. So those are the finance items for this evening. Nothing to report on grants at the moment. We are at this point trying to wrap things up as quickly as possible, running into next week. So again, at your additional meeting that you'll need next week for the warrant articles, we'll have an updated operating budget. We'll have the final capital recommendations for you from CIPC. And we will proceed with the free cash recommendations and a work with Selectman Murphy on a basic ARPA survey to issue via SurveyMonkey to the community.
All right. And is that all for your updates, Mitch?
That's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, and I know for general updates, I'm gonna have Selectwoman Donnelly go first, because I know we spoke earlier, so.
Right. So John Lopez, our conservation agent, has been working hard with Mitch on preparing a municipal vulnerability preparedness grant application on coastal resilience. And he is soliciting letters of support from different bodies and individuals. And he's actually been working really hard on doing this. He's gotten quite a few letters from everyone from the Art Association to Commercial Fishermen Association. I mean, he's really got a lot of letters and has asked that the Board of Selectmen also provide a letter of support for this grant. So I just would like to ask that we agree that we will provide that letter.
And just so we're clear, we'll have a consensus, and I think Selectwoman Donnelly and myself can work with Mitch to get one drafted up, and
Sure.
then we'll bring it from
There
the
is a
board.
template.
He
Okay.
actually prepared a template. Really
Awesome.
easy.
All righty.
Yep.
Sounds good. So if there's a consensus, that's what
Yep,
we'll do.
I'm good. Thank you for putting this together.
I support this as well.
All righty.
Great.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, any other updates from the board? If not, Selectwoman Wilkinson?
I do. I recently, I became the new finance committee liaison as liaison stuff shifted around. And I attended last week, and I'm also the school committee liaison. So coincidentally, last week they had a joint school committee finance committee meeting where the school committee presented their budget to the finance committee. And I have to say, Mitch was on there as well. I think, I used to say that throughout Rob's tenure as superintendent, like the budget process got more and more transparent every year. And I would say that the new superintendent, Dr. Branco, presented, as we all know, a budget book, which outlines like so much more than just the budget. And I think the finance committee really, truly appreciated it and took it all in. Mitch, you can add anything as well, because I know you were there. Really asked some thoughtful, engaging questions, and they voted to approve the budget as well at the end. So that was a kind of a cool, it was a great productive meeting. And then last night I attended the Board of Health meeting as their liaison. And it looks like we need to get a final okay, but they're going to join us at our meeting on April 4th. Mitch, did they mention anything else about that at the end? It sounds like they're just going to get a final okay.
I believe that was the case. I don't recall that they had any more substantive discussion on that.
And then I told Dr. Newman, the chair of the Board of Health, and Ruth George, who's the vice chair, that we would touch base to work on joint agenda items for us to discuss when they join us. And then they're also embarking on, the town has received, it's somewhere between $10,000 and $40,000. We're trying to figure it out in the very last few weeks of opioid settlement funds. And the Board of Health, as you know, is embarking on a process by which we can approve the funds. It's actually the Board of Selectmen that has to approve them. But I explained that it's kind of their wheelhouse. So it looks like the process we've come up with together is that organizations can go to the Board of Health with a proposal for using the funds, a detailed proposal, and then the Board of Health will vote whether or not it's kind of in their 5 ideas for spending the money. And if they support it, then it will come to us for approval. But basically, so we'll get, things that the Board of Health has kind of, blessed, for lack of a better word, or supported. Does that sound accurate, Ruth? I know Ruth is here. Great. And then we're also going to work, I'll work with them on getting the word out that these funds are available. We're going to try to get it on the town website, maybe do some Facebook posting, and try to get word out there that the money's available. And I have a feeling that, as these settlements happen, cities and towns are going to get more and more money. So it's important. They're important funds that we have to use. So I think that's it. Thanks.
Right. And then Mitch, you have any general updates?
Not at this time, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, with that, Selectman Lilia.
Yes, I think it's worthy of note that the CPC meeting of last week featured the director of CPA from Boston, who spoke at length about the functioning of CPC. There are some situations in Rockport that need to be attended to. And I would also request that all of the members of the Board of Selectmen see the CPC presentation or by the CPA director, because I think it would be informative to all of you to be able to go forward with the use of those funds, which have certain restrictions on them that we haven't perhaps been adhering to quite as finely as we might. Anyway, that's definitely worthwhile. I would also recommend that anyone who supports the Rockport Affordable Housing Trust write in their letters of support to the selectmen to emphasize once again that we move forward with this particular statute, and that we don't lose any more time with regard to the adoption of whatever we need to by virtue of change of bylaws to make this a functioning body, so that although we're going to lose another year before we can really request funds, that in this interim that the process starts and it is robust as we go forward. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you. And seeing no more, I'll turn it over to public comment. All right, seeing Barbara.
Thank you, Barbara Kaplan for Ocean Avenue. You mentioned a survey of 2 questions regarding ARPA funds. How will people know about this survey so that many people in town can let their views known? I mean, I'm particularly interested in affordable housing, as you know from my other comments, and I know that ARPA funds can be used for affordable housing. So I would like this survey to be townwide or in some way advertised so that people can give effective input into the use of ARPA funds. So does anyone have an answer to?
That's our intention. We will post
Skies.
it. We will post it on our social media accounts. It'll be on the town website, all of our normal means of distributing messages out. So we'll be sure that it is widely publicized.
All right, next up is Toby.
Thank you, Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I also attended the Finance Committee to which Sarah Wilkinson referred, reviewing the school's budget, and I asked the usual questions about the SPED expenses. And those, in response to the question, it was not otherwise divulged. The SPED expenses now amount to 39% of the school's budget. Last year, it was 34%. I also asked if that included the deposit they were only dealing with the operating budget at that point. If that 39% included what goes into the SPED stabilization fund. I didn't get an answer on that, and I do want an answer to that question. Because although those money going into the stabilization fund may be spent this year or may sit there, once it's voted into the fund, it can't be taken out for any other purpose. As I recall, it's a majority vote to put it in, but a 2/3 vote with any of the stabilization funds to take it out. So I would hope for the answers to those questions. I agree with Denise, what she said about the ARPA funds and the unfortunate aspect of using them for the COVID. There's a basic difference there too, in that if it goes before the town meeting, we're all voting it out of the general fund and we have a say in the matter. Whereas if it's coming out of the ARPA funds, it's a decision that lies with the 5 of you and no one else. You're going to consult with the public, but when the day is done, you get to decide. The town meeting doesn't. And then I had questions about the climate resiliency and mitigation, the $100,000. Of course, we all hope that the ocean won't devour us all, but squandering or spending money isn't necessarily going to change things. It might help us or it might not. There's also an application from Eric Hutchins and someone else in for the community preservation for $50,000, and a statement in that application that was to match $250,000. Was not clear to me where that was going to come from. Are we talking about the same thing on all of those, or are these 2 different efforts?
Those are different matters.
And how do they mesh together?
Well, the CPC application was submitted by individuals in an attempt to support the MVP application. That has yet to be vetted by CPC. It'll go through their process. And I can't really speak much further on that. I mean, that application has to be vetted through its appropriate process.
It does seem to me strange that it's not approved by some official body rather than coming from 2 citizens. I mean, it's certainly public spirited of them, and the general trend of it is all to the common good. But someone obviously needs to be coordinating it.
We agree, Toby.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I just want to touch on this SPED stabilization. Is it correct to say that it doesn't reflect that much, considering we just came up with that number?
I honestly, I need to take a closer look at that. I don't want to misspeak.
All righty, sounds good. And next is Diane.
You can bet it doesn't.
Hi, Diane Velda, 17 King Street. Mitch, I really appreciate you doing a survey for the ARPA funds. Could you please include in that survey what the appropriate categories are to spend it in, so that we're not getting people responding for that they want to spend it on something that it is not meant for? Because there's quite a good list. But make sure that people understand that this is not to be spent on a dog park or something, whatever they decide.
So we'll certainly, we accepted the funding and the board accepted the funding in a, I forget the exact term, but it did broaden it a bit. I'll be sure that we, when Selectman Murphy and I look at it, we'll try to be as clear as possible on, generally speaking, what's allowed and what we can do to accommodate that. I get your point though, to try to narrow people's focus.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing any more public comments, so I'll take a motion to adjourn. And there is no executive session tonight, so everyone knows.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Aye.
Good night.
Night.